You're watching Open Agenda.
And now for something completely different. Hi, folks. Welcome back to Open Agenda. Now, this week, we're going to do things a little bit differently. As you can see, instead of two, there's three handsome guys that are going to be giving their views on current events, both in the city and regarding county issues. I'm joined, obviously, by the voice of Open Agenda, Mr. Mike Goldberg, and, of course, our producer, editor, magical technological guru extraordinaire, techno guy, Mr. Mark Carroll. And we have a lot to talk about today. There's actually two sort of big issues that we'd like to address, and then after that we're going to transition to a conversation with Council Member Josh Hastings, who will join us in the smaller studio. But first, gentlemen, I think it goes without saying there's quite a lot of news circulating regarding the recent City Council meeting that occurred on Monday, the 27th of January, and specifically that pertains to the council's decision to override Mayor Randy Taylor's veto of a density amendment change that basically is going to bring a fairly large luxury apartment complex to downtown, but also is tied to all sorts of concerns.
Yeah, absolutely.
So what did you think about the vote and the issues related to it?
Well, with respect to the issues, if it was just one project increasing the density from 40 to 80, we could probably live with that. But the central business district is now being painted with a very broad brush. And when all future development has such a high density, downtown is going to become a very undesirable place because there is going to be insufficient parking. I think there is going to be a lot of traffic headaches. You have limited access because of the geography. You're surrounded by the South Prong and the main stem of the Wycomico River. It's going to be quite a mess. I'm also concerned about the way that the City Council went about this. I think public opinion was suppressed. And that's very disturbing in itself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely, and I agree. What you said about downtown is 100% correct. Downtown is basically an island. It's between the highways and then the river, and it's stuck. That's where it is. If you build it up, too big, there's nowhere to add parking elsewhere. So parking will perpetually be a problem. I think the biggest issue here is the council's inability to recognize Mayor Taylor's expertise in this area. He's been downtown for over 20 years. Has been involved with businesses downtown. He has seen these similar plans come and go. People come in with promises and then never deliver. He's seen all of that, and I know that because I was downtown with him. We were neighbors for years. I lived downtown. I had an office downtown, all within that area. Randy Taylor is an expert in that area, and if he saw a problem with all of what was presented to him and he thought that it was an issue, they should have listened because he knows what he's talking about.
And he's also a commercial lender, which gives him, I think, a very unique perspective.
Exactly.
You have to analyze everything from traffic volumes, which is all part of the density issue. And the Department of Infrastructure and Development, furthermore, they recommended against this. They are truly experts. This city council simply ignored them, their recommendations.
That, to me, is really the crux of the matter, is that when it comes to the actual professionals who don't have a financial incentive on this issue, they were totally ignored.
Absolutely.
Right? The DID staff, their job is, as you said, to do those things. So forget the mayor. Right, these are the bureaucrats you have who do this. This is why you hire them. And the fact that you have a process that really goes back to when the Planning and Zoning Commission sort of jammed it through as well, under circumstances that I think we all would agree are less than ethical. It raises all sorts of questions about why is the city council, or at least why are four members of the city council. We actually should give a shout out to council member and my rep, Sharon DeShiel, for asking for time to examine the issue, for pausing it, not even to do away with it, because the thing about this matter, at least for a lot of people, is no one is actually against the density change. We agree that there needs to be some kind of reform, but how it's done really matters.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, it seems that the Planning and Zoning Commission, which had a 5-hour meeting a few months ago on this matter, did not even discuss it. They just rammed through a pre-written statement. And then the city council also didn't have any public discussions. It's literally as if the only thing motivating them is this vote for density. I have never seen, in all my years as a resident and taxpayer, I have never seen a city council more single-minded to pass a piece of legislation without any regard from the public beyond the developer.
The outcome was clearly predetermined. You know, as you mentioned, the general public was locked out of the discussion. The Department of Infrastructure and Development was ignored. So what's going on here? And I also might add that most of the members of the city council, they have no background in development or in land planning. They really don't understand these issues, and if they do, they are being their votes were compelled by something else. The question is, what was that?
I agree with that. I would make one caveat. There is one council member, you could argue, that does have some experience with these matters, but that's part of the problem.
Yes.
So Council President Deshaun Dowdy works for Green Street Housing, which is one of the developers that is going to be impacted by this density change. And that raises all sorts of questions about possible conflicts of interest, about ethics. And it's really concerning when this vote and several others have been taken in which you have people whose employers are literally financially attached to these changes, and there's no discussion or no second guessing about maybe this is a bad look, maybe this presents some concerns for the public. It's deeply troubling.
Well, because of this conflict, we already know that I believe one lawsuit has been filed so far or is about to be, and there's probably going to be some more. Unfortunately, it's going to be the taxpayers of the city of Salisbury who, in order to protect their city, are going to have to bear the cost of those legal actions.
What's going to be cheaper, the lawsuit or the garage?
Well, and that's the other part of it, right? That I think it is sometimes lost in some of the media coverage, because a lot of what the mayor was talking about was the parking, which, again, I get that's his prerogative. I actually think in terms of public discourse, it would have been more effective to talk about the fact that, you know, part of the fact that these density changes would alter the ability for getting access to downtown to park is that it came with a 20-year tax abatement, right? 20 years of subsidies to Gillis Gilkerson, on top of the fact that it would also require the city to bond for a garage, which would be at least $11 million is the current estimate, which the city would then have to pay about $500,000 to $600,000 per year on. So we're basically defunding ourselves, or at least going into debt, for a luxury apartment that in the end is only going to add at most 200 units or so. It's not going to substantially transform the nature of Salisbury. And it begs the question, why are our supposed elected officials who represent all of us, why do they seem so single-minded in specifically giving one developer and a few ancillary developers and businesses, why are they giving such preferential treatment, it would seem, and such a focus on every policy toward this?
That's the $60,000 question, and I hope that...
I think it's more than that.
It's more like the $60 million question. But it's going to be expensive, and I think the people, the residents of the city of Salisbury, they're just going to get hammered. They're paying to subsidize, as you mentioned. They're going to have to build a new parking garage. There's going to be a great deal of new subsurface infrastructure, stormwater management, stormwater quality facilities, and you're in an area that is within the Chesapeake Bay critical area, and an area that's already prone to flooding. This is going to be very expensive development, and to me, the big question is, will people actually come? Do people want to live in a central business district? Central business district, not central residential district. People tend, since World War II, to move out of the CBDs. They want some space. They want some land around them so their kids have a place to play. And they're not going to get that. I think that the demand for downtown housing is going to be very limited, and it is certainly not going to be housing that will benefit low-income people. That's just not going to be the nature of it.
You brought up a very good point about the cost of it, because I feel like from the outside, a lot of citizens of Salisbury might not realize, they might think that this is just a downtown issue. This is not. This is going to cost everyone in the city of Salisbury because the city is going to be paying for it, and your tax dollars are going to be paying for it. And you're also right. It is not fun to live downtown. I can tell you, I lived downtown 20 years ago, and they have since changed it, but they called them mixed-use buildings. We didn't get trash pickup. We had to go out and purchase our own parking permits. It was a nightmare.
Well, and again, let's be clear. As of right now, the only thing for certain is that lawyers are going to make money because with at least one lawsuit already filed and perhaps another on the way, this very well might be tied up in court for years.
Yeah.
Which again raises the question: what are our city council's priorities?
Well, everybody in Salisbury should be prepared to reach down deep into their pockets, and they can thank our current city council. Thank goodness for Councilwoman Sharon DeShiel, who actually did some homework on this and stood up for her constituency.
Yeah, but you're right. That is an expensive proposition, and unfortunately for me, I was born handsome, not rich. But
hopefully, in the next election cycle, they'll reach for a pencil instead of money and choose better representatives.
We'll see. Again, as the old saying goes, you get the government you deserve, right? On that note, folks, we're going to shift gears a bit and address specifically one other important topic, which of course is the upcoming meeting with the County Council regarding a very long-standing lawsuit that was filed several years ago by the NAACP and the ACLU of Maryland, which also impacts, of course, our county's future in a very important way. So let's talk a little bit about that particular topic.
Okay. Before 1987, Wicomico County had a 5-member county council, all of which were elected at large. In other words, all council members were elected countywide. But in 1986, the Supreme Court ruled that under certain circumstances, at-large seats violate the 15th Amendment and the Voting Rights Act of 1965, which were intended to ensure that voting rights were not abridged based on race or color. This principle applies even if denial of voting rights was not intended. In response to the Supreme Court ruling and following a Department of Justice lawsuit, Wicomico County created 5 election districts in 1987, whereby one council member is elected from within each of the 5 districts. Then 2 additional council members are elected at large for a total of 7 council seats. This is known as the 5-2 system. One of the 5 districts was also drawn to ensure that the majority of the population within that district were minorities. This is known as a minority-majority district. Other towns and counties on the Eastern Shore and beyond also abandoned the system by which all council or commission members were elected at large. Additionally, in 2016, the Wicomico County Board of Education, which had previously been appointed by the governor, became locally elected and adopted the same district boundaries and the 5-2 system as the county council. Fast forwarding to 2023, the NAACP and other plaintiffs filed a lawsuit against Wicomico County and the Board of Education, claiming that retaining the 2 at-large seats on both the County Council and Board of Education diminishes the voting strength of the minority population and therefore violates the Voting Rights Act. The lawsuit's objective is to create 7 election and corresponding Board of Education districts with no at-large seats on either. Of the 7 proposed election and Board of Education districts, 2 are to be drawn as minority-majority seats. The lawsuit also provides for Wicomico County and the Board of Education to pay for the plaintiff's costs and attorney's fees in the amount of $135,000. So, to avoid expensive litigation in which the county and Board of Education would be likely to lose, the parties will probably make an out-of-court settlement adopting most tenets of the NAACP lawsuit. Discussions have recently been held in closed-door meetings of the County Council. The lawsuit and possible settlement will be discussed by the County Council in open session on Tuesday, February 4th at 6 o'clock p.m. We hope y'all will attend or watch the proceedings on PAC 14.
Well, Mike, thank you for that phenomenal summary. I think, obviously it's a very complex issue, but I think you've distilled it rather phenomenally. And I guess for the public, the thing that would be of most importance, would be to attend or at least watch it on PAC 14, as you said, so that you actually get to see in real time, how the council will kind of publicly debate and address the nature of the lawsuit and really talk about what it means, because again, it has huge impacts about who our local reps are, not just for the county, but as you said, for the Board of Education.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Right. Well, on that note, we're going to transition to the next segment of our show. I'm going to be joined by one of those council members, actually, Mr. Josh Hastings, and he's actually going to speak about that lawsuit in a little bit more detail. And we're also going to chat a little bit about the ongoing concerns in the region regarding avian bird flu and what ramifications that might have for the poultry industry. So stick around, if you will, and we'll continue on with this episode of Open Agenda. Welcome to Open Agenda. I'm your host, not Joe White. I'm the other Joe, Joe Venosa, and I'll be hosting this week in Mr. White's absence. And lucky for us, we have quite a bit to talk about, and we have a very special guest with us. Actually, he was our first guest when we began about 8 months ago. So we're lucky to have Councilman Josh Hastings from the Wicomico County Council from District 4.
Coming full circle.
Full circle, yeah.
By the way, I think you should start the show with "Hey Joe," Jimi Hendrix playing in the background.
You know what? If we could avoid the
I can play
copyright
it.
infringement, I think we could do that. We'd have to get a
Jimmy's
public.
dead.
Yeah, well, unfortunately, his estate isn't. But that's mean. His estate is nice. But thank you for coming out today.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. So we've got quite a few things to talk about, and obviously, I think with your background and position on the council and sort of in state matters in general, it would probably be good to help inform the public about some of the sort of emerging issues. And obviously, one of the things that's been in the news lately and is certainly on a lot of consumers' minds is the situation regarding the poultry industry, and in particular, the situation regarding the avian flu. Could you give us a little bit of background and context on sort of what's been happening?
Yeah, and by the way, I'll say, of course, I grew up on a poultry farm and I've spent hundreds of hours, I don't know, thousands of hours working on the farm, but hundreds of hours working in the chicken house themselves. I grew up with that industry as it evolved a lot to where it is today. The big issue, every year, the perennial issue is always the outbreak of avian flu. This is the H5N1 is the general variant that's been out there, but there's also the H5N9. That's the one that's actually killed a person recently in Louisiana. And there's been multiple outbreaks. Then H5N9s were on the West Coast, but what we have to worry about here is H5N1, and that's actually touched multiple neighboring counties and neighboring states, and it's been touched down in Caroline, Queen Anne's, Dorchester. So that, of course, and by the way, and if you saw the news recently, also there's been a lot of dead birds found in Delaware Beach communities.
It seems that obviously, the media coverage has focused, sort of exclusively, at least on sort of the nightly news, on things like egg prices. But from your vantage point, or I should say, are you hearing anything specifically from our local farmers about these kinds of concerns, and are they taking steps to mitigate, and should the public have a better sense of what they can do to maybe sort of help?
Yeah, we've actually, and I'm always in my day job. We work in the ag and conservation community. They're always vigilant and very vigilant on this particular issue. We've had actually a couple outbreaks in the last decade that have been challenging. One of them was the 2014-2015, about 10 years ago. That year we had the outbreak mainly stayed on the West Coast, but that was 48 million birds that ended up being affected. And then on Delmarva, it was we had about 2 years ago was the last big issue, and what that happens, by the way, and to put it in context, here's not only, of course, can just like any other flu, it can be transmissible among multiple birds, and our main issues is the waterfowl. As you know, Delmarva, not only do we have it's a flyway for a lot of birds, a lot of migratory species, a lot of them touch down here, but also home of the poultry industry. So any particular chicken house nowadays, when I was younger, a large chicken house was about 30,000 birds. Now that's among the smaller ends.
Wow.
So you're talking about in this case 40,000 or so birds per chicken house. Some farms having as many as 10 houses on there. So the issue of one of them getting sick, and then it spreads very quickly. So the Department of Agriculture does actually routine testing at their facility. Actually, it's located here in Wycomico County, but they do regional testing through that. But when one does get sick, they have to go and call all of the birds. It's tough process. Yeah.
Yeah, it sounds like it. I mean, and the logistics of it, obviously at the state level, seem very complicated. And I guess my follow-up to that is, given that we basically are very close to both the border of Delaware and Virginia, that would imply that there would need to be a lot of interstate coordination on this. Is that happening right now from what you've seen or heard, or what's the...
Yeah, there. Luckily, we've had. I mean, obviously, luckily, this is awful, but I mean, we have had a couple close calls in the last couple of years where it could have taken off and spread and got much worse. The Delmarva Chicken Association, who I work with, Holly, who leads that. You know, she's done a fantastic job. They've been on top of it, making sure that most of our farmers can. Once again, fixing the gates outside on most of their properties. Usually they put either a gate or some sort of protective area so that folks can't come in. Usually all it takes is one person who has run over an infected bird with their vehicle, and they drive onto a property. They want to go check out a particular property, and they come in the back, you know, and then that usually it comes through feces or through, or oral and nasal secretions. But if that happens and then that gets into that chicken house, I mean, it can very quickly become a very serious problem. So most of them have enhanced, they're currently working in enhanced biosecurity. So what that means is all of the chicken houses that are around here locally, poultry houses, they'll have, everyone has to suit up if anyone does come in, usually no outside vehicles, no outside equipment. Everyone has to go through step into a bleach, it's kind of like a tray, you basically steps in. So all of those measures have really gotten a lot stronger since I was, the 80s and 90s, especially since I was young. But it is very effective. The more that we can keep people out and keep it separate from the interactions. I think a lot of people are, they have their backyard flocks and they're very proud of it.
Right.
We just have to be careful on the Delmarva Peninsula just because there's such a high concentration of birds.
So it's not so much that the nature of this particular kind of avian flu is endemic to one or two large farms. It's that it can go anywhere, but the mitigation process, because it's well regulated, has been successful at this point in kind of limiting those instances, at least historically.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and by the way, I tell anyone there's a series on Netflix that I watched back in 2019. Early on, my wife and I were watching it, and it's about pandemic, and it's about predicting, basically saying, and this is 2019. It's basically saying that
I think I've seen this too with my wife. Yeah,
it's saying that basically a pandemic's likely to happen.
Yeah.
And one of the places that they feature from around the world is the place called the Delmarva Peninsula, where it talks about the flyway and the chicken poultry industry. But it's amazing to see, but it actually really shows how our area we have to be extra vigilant on this.
On that issue. Wow, yeah. Fascinating. Well, thank you for the information on that, and obviously we'll sort of keep our finger on the pulse of that news, and hopefully it won't become as large of a concern as it would appear to be in some local contexts. Yeah. But Josh, we have a couple more things to talk about, particularly the upcoming county council meeting and sort of some of the aspects of what you'll be discussing. Would you stick around for a few more minutes?
Yeah.
After the break, and
roll through it all.
We'll chat.
Yeah,
all right. Great. Thank you so much. So we're going to be back in a few minutes with Councilman Josh Hastings, and we're going to pick up on some of the issues that they'll be talking about at Tuesday's county council meeting. So stay with us. Welcome back to Open Agenda. I'm here again with Councilman Josh Hastings. Josh, thanks for coming back with us.
Thank you. Yeah, glad to be here.
Yeah, great. So we obviously have a lot to talk about regarding the upcoming county council meeting, which will be at 6 p.m. on, I believe it's Tuesday, February 4th. So at that meeting, there is a resolution on deck that addresses specifically the possible conclusion to a piece of litigation that the county's been involved in with both the NAACP and a few other plaintiffs. This is Resolution 23-2025. Could you sort of talk about what that is and why it's important for the public to sort of know?
Yeah, and I really hope the public shows up, can show up or can pay attention and hear what has come from it. We'll actually have at that meeting one of our special attorneys kind of working on that. They can give a bigger, broader understanding of how we came to be at where we're at. But basically, the quick version of it is that the NAACP and the ACLU sued Wycomico County, saying that we have a high minority population, or black population specifically, the way that the Voting Rights Act lays it out, and that we currently have only one minority district and then 2 at large for the county council. So 7 total seats, 5 districts, 2 at large. That's the way we currently operate. Their thought was, well, it should be 7 different districts and then maybe 2 minority districts. So we've been going maybe about a year and a half or so, going through the process of litigation and having discussions. What's the best way to rectify this and to make things right? So I think we're very we basically are now at a place where we've accepted, come to terms, and so at this council meeting we will go forward and kind of accept all of the recommendations that have come about and the agreements that has been reached, and then that would include creating 7 new county council districts.
And I believe there was a press release earlier this week that actually included those new proposed maps, those 7 new districts, correct?
Yeah, and they should be up fully on the website for the county's website now. There's a GIS version. You can actually go in and look at some of the data, and then in the briefing book, it's already posted. It actually has copies of the map itself, so people can start to figure out, where do they currently fit within these districts.
And I guess the question that I have to you, as someone who's been in elected office and has represented primarily the city of Salisbury, being in District 4, how substantial is that change on the map in general from what it was to what it is?
Yeah, my district basically gets ripped up. It's I'm going to be in what will be the new District 7. Will be my area, but also there's a District 4 which my currently has. That's part of my area, and then District 3. So
Salisbury's sort of cut up into 3 pieces then.
Yeah, it's really going to be. Yeah, it's going to be chopped up a lot. So it will look very different than it currently does, and then currently the population of 106,000 for the county. So dividing that up, it's actually divided up pretty evenly with the way that it's set up so far. So dividing them up by 7.
And this also, therefore, though, will include these new lines will apply for both the county council and the Board of Education.
Yes, yep,
Okay.
they're for both, and they will take effect. We will be accepting them as the plan goes forward, but and they'll have to, we won't. Typically, you would go through this process to change. You'd have to put it for the voters to look at and to understand. This is not, because it's a lawsuit. It's a very different kind of a situation. But it will take effect for the next election. So the 2026 election, that'll be the first time we'll have this.
So it's coming up then, essentially. Yeah. Okay, wow. And I guess and I don't know if this was ever brought up, but it seems to me a little bit ironic that if one of the arguments in the lawsuit is that any at-large position sort of fundamentally, violates the Voting Rights Act, you could make the argument that the county executive position is a sort of a direct threat to the essence of the 1965 Voting Rights Act. I find that kind of ironic that the position itself, I mean, that wasn't ever a part of the actual lawsuit, correct?
No.
Okay.
Yeah, and I honestly, I don't, as a whole, I really don't know that. I mean, as a person, like, I'm a master's degree in public policy. I care about, setting good systems so that we all can kind of come at the right, conclusions together and understandings together. But the challenge is often that you create districts that they usually end up being, for lack of a better word, gerrymandered.
Right.
And I don't think that's generally good for democracy. But in this case, you're going to have giant swings between the number of people in a particular political party in these districts. But as a whole, I think the ACLU, NAACP, and the county did a good job working together to try to find to produce a result that made sense given the parameters that we have.
And with regard to that point about gerrymandering, would you say that the lines that are drawn, at least from a political party view, are they any better or worse than what we have had? Are they the same? I mean, how would we kind of?
They're more extreme.
They are more extreme. Okay.
Yeah, and they're going to be that way. But the public can take a full look at it. But once again, this is a way to try to the Voting Rights Act that was passed long before we were born. That actually does, it says you have to be be very careful and specifically with black population. That's the way that they look at it, not minority as a whole, but trying to make sure that that everyone has an opportunity to be able to be represented.
Okay.
And so, and this, by the, I'll say also, this is not the first case. It's not like Wycomico is unique, and Federalsburg recently had this situation and end up having to pay a lot of money and go through a lot of.
Yeah, it seems that the Federalsburg sort of case was the template for what happened here. Is that fair to say?
No, it was actually these cases have been going around the country.
No, but in terms of Maryland, like
Looking at it, yeah.
looking at it
kinds of-
in terms of, yeah.
But the parties have all worked together. We've had really good conversations, and I think our attorney's going to actually do a good job of understanding how this came to be,
Okay.
and then what it actually looks like. But overall, I think everyone should generally feel like we've met the objectives and that it's been thoughtful.
Okay, fantastic. And the attorney who's taking care of this particular matter is Mr. Kevin Karpinski, correct?
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
not Dan Cox.
No.
Okay.
Special counsel. Yeah.
Just checking. Okay, making sure. Fantastic. So, in your opinion, then this would be a really important meeting for the public to either attend or watch because of its ramifications. Fair
Yeah,
to say?
there's going to be a whole new people people get used to their districts. And by the way, when we went through redistricting a couple years ago, we generally tried to keep the districts the same and to not have jagged what do they call them, the prostrate pterodactyl shaped districts. Like the Wycomico, we did a really good job in trying to make sure that they stayed consistent and compact.
Right. Yeah.
And so we kept those largely the same as of the last from when I first ran into office to then this past time. So these districts are going to look markedly different.
I see.
Just because we had to, cut them
Make
up.
the accommodations. Wow, fantastic.
But-
Well, Josh, we really appreciate you coming out and letting the public know about this particular matter. Well, actually, both matters. Obviously, they impact daily life in many ways, and I think the voters are going to see in the next cycle, obviously, the impact in a very pronounced way.
And I hope they come out. I hope folks come out and think, oh, they should run for office too. And maybe this gives an opportunity for more people to run who haven't considered it in the past.
And the best part about this new feature, though, is that you can actually sort of put your address in a search feature to find out what district you're in.
Yeah.
So that's actually very sort of convenient for people that are interested.
Yeah.
So wonderful. Well, Councilman, thank you for coming out. We always appreciate the time and opportunity. And I feel like we've come full circle now after, I think, 32 episodes or so and eight months of doing this. So this
Congrats
has been,
on season 2.
Thank you. Yeah, season 2. Yeah, absolutely. Sequels are great. So you have a wonderful day. Thank you again. And for those at home, we appreciate you watching. Obviously, the upcoming County Council meeting is going to be in the Government Office Building in downtown Salisbury at 6 p.m. on February 4th. So we hope to see you there, or at least you hope you can watch it on PAC 14. And have a wonderful week.
We think Mark Carroll is the best editor ever.